Abbandando. He was a New York City thug. He was dubbed Dasher. Even when he was an adult, he was called Dasher. And this might be one of the few cases where a mob guy was actually carried the nickname that was real, that they used on the street, not one that the cops made up or usually a newspaper reporter made up, especially in Chicago, by the way. The Tribune, I forgot, Ryan was the newspaper reporter's name. He worked on a third shift at the paper, and that's what he would do. He would make up these weird names for these gangsters, and he'd have fun doing it. But Dasher, he was actually called Dasher. He was called Dasher because when he was a little boy, he was really good at smash and grab. He'd go over to a store, throw a rock or a brick through the window, grab what he could, and run like hell. And he was never caught, hence Dasher. Um, later on, by the way, means in his teens, he graduated to extortion. He would come up to shop owners and tell them, "Pay me, or I'll burn down your shop," uh, and they paid. And then, but he was really good at it. And by his early 20s, he was lieutenant for the crime boss Harry Maione over in Ocean Hill section of Brooklyn, and he organized gambling and loan sharking and extortion rackets. In 1932, he took part in the Shapiro Gang Brothers War. The Shapiro Brothers were over in Brownsville. They were really brutal. One of them, I can't remember his name. He owned a gas station. They car repair shop. He was a rapist and a brutal rapist. Um, I went to one of the places in New York where one of the Shapiro brothers was murdered and tossed into this alley. A little stream runs through it. Not something you expect in New York City. And a friend of mine lived by, and he took me, and we went over there. You know, that neighborhood's still scary. I mean, it would make sense today if a dead guy showed up near that stream. Anyway, after that, he drifted into a job as a killer for Murder Inc. As an assassin. He murdered or took part in the murder of around 300 people for a flat fee of $500. And people said, well, so little money. Well, $500 then, let's say 1933, was about $10,000 today. So 500, so 300 murders, $500. It was really, if you don't know what Murder Inc. was, I know most of you do. If you don't, Al Capone, they had a syndicate meeting, and Al Capone said, "Look, this is crazy. We've got gang guys shooting each other left and right. This has got to stop. So why don't we have one sanctioned squad who will take care of everything?" And it was agreed that was a really good idea. Here's the problem. Let's say a gang in a syndicate gang in I don't know, northern New Jersey. Uh, they did something to piss off a gang, syndicate related gang in Brooklyn. The guy from Brooklyn would go over to New Jersey and shoot that guy, and then you got territorial wars. It was crazy. So this way, you had to go through Murder Inc. if you were part of the syndicate. And they were good at obviously good at what they did. Everything was going peachy creamy for him until 1940, when he was arrested, uh, based on a testimony of a former Murder Inc. guy named Abe Reles, who was a piece of work. You know, I was reading research on him one time, doing research on him, and the cops who had to protect him when he was in protective custody really hated protecting this guy because he never showered. He stank. He was just horrible. Uh, and he was probably, I think Relis, if you read about him, he was very bright, but he was kind of nuts as well. He ended up, they tossed him out a window from a hotel in Coney Island. I was there 10 years ago, maybe. And the building was still there. It's an old age home. It's a very big building. If you ever see photos of it, it doesn't do it justice. The photos from that day. Well, it's a very big building. He landed on a lower roof. From that, by the way, tossing him out came that line, supposedly from Lucky Luciano. I don't think he actually said it. Again, I think a newspaper guy came up with it and attributed it to Luciano. When they found out that Relis had been tossed out a window, he said that bird could sing, but he couldn't fly. That line was later used in the movie On the Waterfront, because when they threw a Teamster guy no, they set off a building, but the actual Teamster guy was thrown off a cliff. Anyway, so Reles, he says, well, Abbandando murdered this loan shark named George Rudnick, and I was there. And on May 25, 1937. So listen to this. I guess to make sure poor Rudnick was dead, they stabbed him 63 times. They shot him, and then they crushed his head in a garage. Anyway, during the trial, and they found his body was stuffed in a car, and some kids came along and found it. How'd you like that, childhood memory? During the trial, Abbandando he's pretty certain the fix is in. In fact, he's positive the fix is in. He thinks his powerful mob guy friends are going to pay off this guy and that guy. Well, at that time, the mobs in New York, I mean, all hell had broken loose. Murder Inc. really pissed off a lot of people, and who were screaming for a crackdown. So nobody was about to reach out and save somebody like Abbandando, who was, if you think about it, a serial killer. But he was so certain when he walked by the judge, he would say things like, I'm going to fucking kill you. He'd whisper it. Or if he'd go by the prosecutor, if he can get close enough, I'm going to shoot you in the face. That didn't help because he went on trial. He was found guilty of murder, of course, and he was executed in the electric chair on February 19th, 1942. Let me tell you an interesting side note about this guy. So there's a story going around that Frank Abbandando, the one person we're talking about, was the inspiration for Mario Puzo's character in The Godfather, Genco Abbandando. Remember Genco Oil? That was named after him. He was Don Corleone's friend. They were pals when they were young men. Remember the scene in Godfather Part 2? I'm sure you saw that. He went to a movie theater and he said, where do you see this girl? She's so beautiful. I love her and so forth. And then Don Fanucci, the badass guy with the white hat, good dresser, stands in front of them. And Genco says, hey, stupid, sit down. And Fanucci turns around. He says, oh, my God, sorry, Don Fanucci. And Don Fanucci, when the show's over with Genco's favorite girl, he goes backstage and they follow him off to the side in the wings. And Fanucci is trying to extort money from the father who owns the theater where the plays are being held, and he won't pay. So Fanucci takes out a switchblade and he holds it to the girl's face. And who knows what happened after that. But anyway, that isn't quite accurate. Abbandando is actually based on a guy named John Tartamella. I don't know why I keep screwing this up. John Tartamella, who was a consigliere, a long-time consigliere to Joe Bonanno, advisor to Joe Bonanno. Much respected in the underworld as well. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it.
This is the first authentic story of how the syndicate controls and operates every racket and vice in the nation. Based on the bullet-riddled pages of the bestseller by former Assistant New York District Attorney Burton Turkis and Sid Fader, the bombshell that exploded it all, the hoods, the sleazy babes, the wanton gunmen who accounted for the incredible total of approximately 1,000 killings executed by Murder Incorporated. Starring Stuart Whitman, My Brit. Here are the most notorious killers for hire in the annals of crime. Names that left a blot on our history. Lepke.
What you have in Brownsville, I have 100 times over in the garment district. Albert Anastasia has on the docks in Brooklyn, and the Capone boys have in Chicago.
And the trigger man without a conscience, Abe Reles, known as Kid Twist.
You take what you could get your hands on. Take. Don't ask questions. Take. What you want, take. What I want, I take.
Witness after witness was rubbed out by the syndicate. Only one man dared challenge them.
Sure, I'll be taking a chance. But who else ever had a chance to get a kingpin like Lepke on the stand? For first-degree murder. Gotta do it. Sure, I'm taking a chance. But with what I got on him, I can nail him.
For what you did to Edie, I'm gonna put you in a chair, I'm gonna turn the juice on, and I'm gonna watch you fry.
Take it easy, kid. Now, look, you're losing your head. You gotta take your time. Keep your
No,
head.
I'm gonna watch you fry.